Anyway, my name's Steve. I'm from a company called Systems and Network Training. We run the LINX accredited training program, which consists of 3 5-day courses. So there's 3 5-day courses. At the end of each course, there's an exam. Normally, there are 40 questions or 60 questions. You're only going to have 2 questions at the end of this piece of training. The training is not based on product training, it's to complement product training, so it's based on technologies, which in our field means RFCs. But it is hands-on, which means we have to use some products, and you can guess which products we use. So if we take LINX week 1, really, I would say that's a TCP/IP course. And we cover end-to-end, so it's not just routers and switches, it is end-to-end, so we do look at VoIP analysis, etc. We do use Wireshark throughout. You could ask why switches are involved when it's a TCP/IP course, because switches work at layer 2, you should all know that. Well, maybe some of you aren't technical, but I'll find that out later. But the reason we talk about switches is we have to talk about how Wireshark works or doesn't work on a switch and port mirroring, things like that. And we also have to talk about IP addressing with VLANs. There's RFCs there, so we are based on RFCs. Some of you have got your laptops in front of you, so you can always, there'll be an exam question on RFC 9226, which is not covered in that course, but we will be covering it. Yeah. Okay, LINX week 2 is all about routing, so it's layer 3, more layer 3, and more layer 3. It covers routing protocols. OSPF is covered in a lot of detail, I would say, maybe too much detail. We also cover IS. We also cover VRP, which is the first hop redundancy protocol. And again, it's all on the RFCs, so we're not interested so much in how you configure it. It's more what happens when it is configured or what doesn't happen and how to troubleshoot it, etc. So as an example, there's a routing table at the bottom, so we're more interested in delegates being able to read routing tables rather than knowing what the commands are to look at a particular routing table, etc. I'm making very good time. If I'm going too fast, let me know. I can always slow down. So I've got to do that. I will get there. Yeah. Okay, LINX week 3. You may wonder why on LINX week 2 there wasn't much BGP, given that BGP is probably core to everything. That's because we've got a whole 5 days of BGP. So this is actually an example slide from the course. I don't know why I picked this one, but it does show you the sort of thing we're looking at. So yes, we do configure BGP. We're actually using EVE-NG currently for all the labs. So if I go back to when we first did all the labs, each delegate had a real bit of kit, but now each delegate has their own lab that they get configured up and do whatever with. And yes, that involves configuration, but we also look at best practices, etc., such as what you should do as an ISP, which means that if the customer sends you traffic, you should only allow traffic coming from their addresses rather than the 10 range or anything like that. Yeah? Okay. Next slide. Right, we do, as a company, we do other courses apart from the LINX accredited training. So we do all sorts of courses, but the one that's particularly relevant because of why we're here, etc., is the peering at LINX. So we've got, this is a 1-day course, sometimes a 2-day course, depending whether it's technical or not technical, etc. But it does go through things like, not the exact configuration that you should have on the interfaces, but some configuration hints. We also go through configurations of how you might connect to the LINX root server. We talk about root collectors. We talk about tools such as peering DB, looking glasses, all good stuff like that. So sometimes when it's non-technical, it's all about buzzwords like what is a root server. Other times it's more technical, as in what communities do I use when I'm connecting to the particular LINX root servers. And that's what's covered. 1 day it's quite a packed 1 day, but it all depends what people want covered in it all. Once upon a time, all our training, so that photo is actually from 2001, which is when the LINX accredited training was first released. Once upon a time, all the training was done face-to-face. Back in March 2020, I believe it was, all face-to-face training stopped. So we had a big effort because as a company, we always said face-to-face, face-to-face. Obviously, we couldn't do that anymore, so we've moved, as many other training companies have, if not all, to doing online live training. So these days, people are coming back in the classroom, but we've got 2 offerings for the LINX accredited training currently. You can either have it face-to-face, or it's available online live. Now, the interesting thing there's just a screenshot from one of the training sessions that was done online. It's still interactive, it's still whiteboard based, all the hands-on is still there. So one of the good things is LINX2 and LINX3 all moved to EVE-NG and labs not on real kit, let's say, and we've just moved all of that into the cloud. So that allows us to do it all remote with all the hands-on. The exams, and there are exams, I've also moved online. So everything's online if that's what you want, or you can come and have the training face-to-face. I would recommend whatever training you're getting, if you are doing it online, keep your video on. There's nothing worse than talking to 100 people, actually, but if you're talking to a small class, there's nothing worse than just talking to a blank screen. Yep. Coming soon, though, there's another variation of the LINX accredited training. So up until now, well, up until very recently, it was all face-to-face, then it became online live. Both of those will continue, but it's also now going to have an on-demand option. It's not ready yet, it's being worked on. It should be ready sometime late this year. It's still interactive, but obviously not from the delegate point of view, but it's effectively all the interactive whiteboard as the trainer's going through whatever slide is there. It's still got all the hands-on, both the instructor walking through the hands-on, and also with the labs tied in with it. The only difference is rather than having to do it from 9 to 5:30, Monday to Friday, you can do it whenever you want. And also we've actually kept in real delegate questions, so they are anonymized, but the delegate questions are there as well. Any questions? Before I start asking, well, since there's no questions, I'll ask you a question. How many of you are non-technical? Just so I know. Oh, there's a few honest people. Okay, this is for you, so you may want to see how much of it goes over your head or not, because I've only got 8 minutes left, but I have caught up a lot of time already. So here's one of the things that was mentioned a bit earlier today. So it's a revision section, and basically there's a link there that you can always follow, but things are changing from, you're going from, let's get this right, from a mask of /22 to a mask of /21. Now, what we've actually done here is on the left-hand side, there's a slide from one of our courses. I don't know which LINX accredited course it's from, but what do these masks mean? If you're technical, you know, but if you're not technical, all that /21 or /22 is doing is giving you a range of addresses. The range of addresses begins at 195.66.224.0. So that's the range of addresses, the start of the range of addresses at London 01. Now, if it had a /24 mask, and it, as far as I'm aware, never has had and never will do, then what it would mean, and that's the one in bold, is that you would have 256 addresses in that range. I'm not saying they're all usable, but that's how many would be in that range. If you're non-technical, that's the only bit you need to, well, it helps if you just know the mask gives you a range, the start is always given, the mask gives the end. The end is, if it's /24, 256 machines, but we're actually going from a /22, which gave you 1,024, to a /21, which now means that you can have 2,048 addresses on London 01. You might want to take 2 away from that, but as a rough idea, that's how it works. So all you need to do, when the exam comes up and you're non-technical and you're picked on, /24 gives you 256, /23 doubles, /22 doubles again, and it keeps doubling as the mask goes that way. It could go the other way, and then the number of addresses in the range halves. So that's the sort of thing we cover in the training, and it's linked to what's happening on London 01. Now, there's something else as well, just to do with the testing of it all. So again, if you go to the London 01, the Netmask change, there's some things about what you can ping and not ping. So something else, again, another slide from another course. I think this one's from LINX2, but it could be LINX1, I don't know. So when you've got these ranges of addresses, what you'll find is the beginning and the end is determined by the mask, but the other thing is the masks means the numbers will jump up. So if there was a London 24, let's say, it might be another jump on. And all this is saying is the jumps are either 4s or 8s. So we were on a jump of 4 at London 01. What that meant was the start was 195.66.224. Add 4 to 224, and you get what? 228. My maths isn't brilliant, by the way, but I can just about do that one. Now, note, 228 is in another range. That's the start of another range. So that's why the slide says when London 01 was /22, it was jumps of 4. So the first address was 224.0. The last one would be 227. Blah, blah, blah. Yep. What we're going to, though, is jumps of 8. That's what the /21 mask will be. The start is still the same, 195.66.224.0, so you don't need to change any existing addresses, but the new end will be one below 232. Where do we get the 232? 224 plus 8 equals 232. Anyway, that's the Netmask change, and there will be an exam question coming up on that. But the other change that was talked about on configuration is not for IP version 4, but for IP version 6. Now, again, we've got a slide from the particular courses. In the italics is what's happening on London 01, but very basically, in IP version 6, there are addresses which are called link local addresses. These link local addresses must be there. Why is that? Because RFC 4291 says all interfaces are required to have at least one link local address. So what is a link local address? They begin with FE80. That's what they begin with. Yeah, the effective range, again, ranges are done with masks, so /10 gives us the end of that range, but FE80::/10 is the link local addresses for IP version 6. : is lots and lots of zeros. If you're technical, you may want to look at, I think there's an error on this slide. So it's not in the original context, but in this context, if you're technical, I think there's an error on this EU I64 addresses slide, which is in the middle. Again, that's taken from one of our courses. But very basically, what you're meant to be doing as members of LUN 01 is statically configuring your IP version 6 link local address, which means you need to know what it is. If you look on the right-hand side, there it is, beginning with FE80, and then : is lots and lots of zeros. And then effectively, what you've got to do, if you're statically configuring it, is take your MAC address from your device and then stick it in the last part, the interface ID. The problem with this is a MAC address is 48 bits. The 64 bits for the interface ID is too big, so what do? And we just stick an FE in the middle of the MAC address, and lo and behold, that's how we get an EU64 IP version 6 link local address, with one extra step, which is the U bit needs to be flipped. So that is the 7th bit for those that are technical, and that's an example of the bit flipping. Again, you can always ask me later what I think is the perceived error in that. And if you're non-technical, I guess that's quite a lot, really. But we need these link local addresses for IP version 6, and they begin with FE80. I think that's enough on that. Right. 2 more slides, 3 more slides, 1 minute to go through them. So here's an exam question. This is not exam grade. This was actually produced last night, so there may be errors in it. But here we go. One thing that's changed is the exams used to be select all that apply, or select the best answers, but never select the best three. We've had to change that because the online exams don't allow for comments anymore, whereas we always used to allow for comments. So I need someone to volunteer. So anyone brave enough to volunteer, just for, and I've kept it simple, whether A or B is correct. Oh, someone shouted out. Maybe not everyone could hear that. No, I'll tell you what it was, but that is correct. B is correct. So the idea is, one of the things happening on London 01 is the Netmask is changing from a /22 to a /21, and the current IP4 addresses can be kept, most definitely. Next, and this is a valid, one of these is a valid address, is that you should, if you're testing it, be able to ping 195.66 and then something.207. So again, a volunteer, someone else, which one is correct, C or D in this case? And if you're non-technical, remember the jumps. Are we jumping in 4s or are we jumping in 8s? From the beginning address of 224. Has anyone volunteered? Sooner you volunteer, sooner you get beer, I guess. Sorry? Yes, someone shouted out. That put some urgency in it. D is correct, okay? Why is D correct? Because we're in jumps of 8. 224 plus 8 gets to 232. That's outside the range of LON 01. However, D, 231.207 is inside that range, and I believe that is the real address that should be pingable, that's used as a potential test as to whether you've configured it correctly or not. Because if you haven't configured it correctly, 231 wouldn't be in the chunk of 4 that you had before with the previous mask. Okay, last is, if you remember, it's a range of addresses. So E or F, which one's correct? So E is, was it /22 allow for 512 addresses, or is it that /21 allows for 2,048 addresses? F, brilliant, yeah, and that is correct. Someone else is thirsty, brilliant. Right, on to the last penultimate slide. With regards to the LINX MOU Appendix 1, Section 3.1, I hope I've got that bit right. Select the best 5 answers. Again, I've made it easy. So it's A or B, C or D, E or F, G or H, I or J. You should be able to walk through it in your own time. However, I'm not sure how many of you have read up on RFC 9226. It's quite a recent RFC. So, is it A or B? So your IPv6 Link local addresses should use which RFC rules, format, whatever. And anyone can shout out because I can hear. And I'm patient. B is correct, yes. B is correct. You should definitely not use RFC 9226. I only picked that one because it's quite a recent one, but there you go. C or D, so a bit unfair if you are non-technical, but it was on a previous slide. IPv6 Link local addresses are defined by FE80, but is it : /10 or is it : /8? And anyone can shout out C or D again. Or not? Yeah, C is the correct answer. So C is the correct range for IPv6 Link local addresses. Right, I haven't really told you what a link local address is, but E, and the name sort of gives it away a little bit, but even if you're non-technical, you might, given the name link local, be able to work well, whether it's E or F. So link local addresses may be pinged from a remote network or not, I guess is the way to phrase that. So what's the answer there, E or F? F, people are getting really thirsty now, so I'll keep going. Brilliant, on to G. So LINX recommend to use either the default IPv6 link local address, or they recommend, and I'm not sure recommend is the right word, I might be corrected on that, but the general idea is, should you statically configure them or should you use the default? Yes, H, sorry, absolutely right. And finally, I and J. So do LINX recommend you use a randomly generated number, which would make sure it's unique, or or does LINX recommend you use the EU I64 format? Someone did whisper that, I've just realised. J is the answer, yeah, okay. And if anyone's technical, what was wrong on the slide to do with the 7th bit? I would agree with that. I think the MAC address is wrong. I'd need to double check it, but I keep looking at it and I think it had a 0 as the 7th bit and it flipped it to a 1, whereas it would have been a 1 and should have been flipped to a 0. But anyway, that was a bit technical. Final slide, which is another exam. No, it's not. Anyway, thank you very much. Hopefully I picked up some time, overrun a little bit. Look, the your courses always open to suggestions as to what goes in them or not, what not goes in them. So we've dropped things like ISDN and whatever over the years, not surprisingly. Anyway, any questions? I'm here, or I'm ready to move on out of the way.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve.
We were just talking about this earlier. So the world is moving away from SNMP because we had its funeral. There was flowers. I gave a speech. I wonder if you might be able to help us with moving the world forward onto things like Yang, NetConf, telemetry-based network management, because I think that would be of huge value to many folks, not just in this room, but in the industry as a whole.
Okay, so roughly, here we go. So yes, we still do SNMP. So we do other courses apart from LINX accredited training. Yeah. We do SNMP. I don't think we've run one for the past 4 or 5 years.
Which is great to hear.
But we do NetConf. We do RESTConf. We do Yang. And network automation, etc. The issue is this, I would say, for the LINX accredited training, there's just 15 days sounds a lot, yeah, but it's already very, very packed. So if we were to add it in, which is a question I did ask 5 years ago or whenever I was here last, it's what we would take out to do that is the one thing, you know. So yes, we do it, but I'm not sure there's room to put it in. If everyone's saying they want it in the LINX accredited training, the tough question is what we take out, yeah, so to speak.
That's fair. Maybe I'll give you some suggestions like IPv6 or something, I don't know.
IP version 6 is already a very small part of the courses.
Yeah, I'm just winding the audience up.